T minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Week 6. It is time for Out of the Tunnel once again on Jack Wagon Sports. Uh, we're down a man this morning. I guess he's still sleeping in, but hey, that's okay. Let him get his rest. But we have a full show for you guys today. As always, we're bringing you your headlines, bets, and our game picks for Week 6. It's a pretty stacked week. I think a lot of people thought last week was going to be, one of the best weeks we've had here lately. But I think this week is going to be equally as good. So let's get right into our headlines without further ado. Um, so far, we've seen a lot of the top teams struggling, to get their season started, especially the top teams. Alabama struggled against Texas, but I mean that win is looking better and better each week. But they've still shown signs here and there of not being the same Alabama that we've always seen. Georgia again looked dominant the first few weeks. All of a sudden, last week they're trailing the Mizzou late, and they have a last second comeback win. Ohio State has looked pretty good. I mean, they struggled a little bit week 1, but still, looking good. And then Michigan, again, looked great the first 3 weeks, and it has begun to struggle here against their Big Ten opponents. Um, so, Slade, I'll ask you first. With this, do you feel like it's one of the more open years that we've had in the college football playoff so far, or what are your thoughts on just this, not just the standings, but where everybody's been playing?
Yeah, so I mean, 2 weeks ago, I would have thought that this is gonna be an open year. We saw previous to that, Alabama stumble against Texas. Not really a stumble, but they just looked sluggish. They couldn't get the ball moving. They couldn't score as much as we see their offense usually be able to score. Uh, Georgia, I mean, last week, they were down 13 nothing going into the into the second quarter against a team that they should have been blowing out. Um and then Ohio State hasn't really had that type of game yet, but they have had the games where it's like 21-10 going into the 4th quarter, and then they just pour it on, sorta like Alabama against Arkansas last week. Um, so I think that in one way, it seems like these teams could have taken a loss and we would have seen a more open, but I think that each team has faced a team that we were gonna see them possibly lose to, like, get that upset loss to, and they didn't get that loss, so they were able to overcome that, and so I think that those top 3 teams that you mentioned, I think those are the teams that we're looking at. I think it's gonna be a fight to see whether it's Clemson or, who else would be able to sneak in and get that 4th spot.
Yeah, like you just said, I think the top 3 teams Georgia is the only one I still have questions about because, like I said, they've started to go in the wrong direction. I could easily see them maybe winning or losing, another SEC contest at some point this year. Maybe their rivalry game late in the year against Georgia Tech. We'll have to wait and see about that. Alabama, I think, is now hitting their stride. Their team looks a lot better, looks a lot whole. Hopefully, Bryce Young can get healthy and come back soon. Ohio State, again, the same thing. I don't really see them having any trouble. The Penn State game could definitely be, a trip up game for them. It's always difficult to go into Happy Valley. Um, but outside of that, until they get to Michigan, and right now Michigan hasn't shown me enough. They're not throwing the ball as well as what I think they should be, especially against weaker Big Ten passing defense opponents. Um, so I could definitely see Michigan falling out of that 4th spot. They tend to struggle with Michigan State, whether Michigan State's good or not. I think Ohio State at Ohio State is going to be difficult for them to win. They have Penn State next week, which is going to be again another difficult game. They have a tough road ahead to keep themselves in the college football playoff game. So I think the 4th spot is really the only one that's open right now. Again, like you said, Clemson. I think Oklahoma State is still my pick to slide in there. Uh, Clemson has looked good, yeah, but I see them tripping up, at some point this season. Um, but so right now, Oklahoma's gonna be my 4th team. But I think the top 3 are fine, especially, like I said, Alabama and Ohio State should be good until that point. Moving on, it is time. So a few schools announced this week that they are not going to be disclosing their NIL deals. Slade, you want to talk more about this?
Yeah, so it's more of just like a confusing thing to me. I thought at the beginning of the season, I mean, we heard Nick Saban say that the NIL deals weren't going to work unless there was complete transparency. Jimbo Fisher, the same thing. And these are two of the big coaches that came out right away and said that their schools are not going to disclose the information, that some of these kids are still underage, that it's against the law to do that, to release that information to a third party. In this example, it's ESPN. ESPN is trying to do data analysis on the NIL deals and such, and it seems like a lot of other sports are willing to open that up, and it's just not the case what they were talking about previously at the beginning of the season when this was thought up to be what was going to happen, and it's just really confusing to me. I thought that they were gonna be like, "Oh, yeah, Bryce Young signed a $1.2 million NIL deal," and, "Oh, yeah, Bennett from Georgia signed a $4 million thing," whatever the deal is. Like, I just thought that that's how it was gonna be because you had people like Nick Saban saying that it needed to be transparent. Everyone needed to know what was going on so that it was fair.
Yeah, it's definitely a little hypocritical, especially like we just said, coming from Nick Saban. And I don't see why there is an issue with disclosing how much your athletes, because yeah, your athletes are making that money, but it's still money coming into your program. I feel like that's still something that you should have to disclose, tell the public. Now you don't have to give like exact figures, but I mean, you should definitely be like, hey, so and so signed $1 million at least, and so on. Um, and there's gonna be plenty of schools that come out and say, "Yep, this is what we made," and so on, to be a lot more transparent. Um, I just I think in the grand scheme of things, to keep, because this is all about, trying to close the gap and make everything have a little bit more parity and have a little bit more, you know, competition across college football. That's what everybody's worried about. That's what, NASCAR, all these racing series and now all these football, programs are worried about is, okay, let's close the gap. Let's be more competitive. Um, Especially somebody like Alabama, who, like, we know you're getting millions of dollars already. Like, we get that. Um, I just feel like there should be rules where you have to be a little bit more transparent about that and open. Um, and so, we'll have to wait and see how that all shakes out and what comes of this. But it is time to talk about Oklahoma's terrible defense about against TCU last week. Um, they did not look good, and now they have a difficult test against Texas this week. So I want to talk a little bit about that.
All right, guys. So today we have the big red rivalry game between Texas and Oklahoma. This is an instant classic game almost every single year. But last week, Oklahoma's defense got really exposed by TCU's offense. I think Texas has a great opportunity to do the same thing this week. I just want to go back to that game film, look at some of the mistakes that Oklahoma made, especially in the first quarter, where they really let the game start to get out of hand a little bit. And just very uncharacteristic mistakes that Brett Venables' defenses don't usually make, especially from all those years we saw him at Clemson and the great things he did there. This is just very weird things to see. And so I just want to point out some of the things they did and just go over that and what I think Texas can exploit this week. All right, so the first play we're going to look at from last week is a 2nd and 6 and the lack of edge contain that Oklahoma shows here. We are going to key in on the two defenders here at the top, the defensive end and the outside linebacker. The defensive end is supposed to set the outside edge here, and the outside linebacker is supposed to fill that gap. Instead, what happens is the defensive end steps in and the outside linebacker still tries to get inside of him. What that does is it exposes the outside edge, making an easy route for the running back to get around the outside edge here. He gets a decent gain, but luckily the secondary is able to flow over there and stop it from being anywhere. Next, we're going to look at this 3rd and long, and this is more of a scheme concern than anything, and it's not really what any one player did wrong. They're going to send these two edge defenders on a blitz, leaving the flat open, and they're asking this middle linebacker to bail out to the flat's wide side of the field. The flats are going to be completely exposed here. Luckily, it's an incomplete pass, but they're a missed tackle away from a big play again. Next up, we're going to look at the 73-yard touchdown pass Oklahoma gave up and the big secondary miscommunication they had. So here, Oklahoma's in a 4-2-5, showing a cover 4 look. What that means is they're splitting the field in the force. The corners and two of the safeties are going to take deep and let nothing behind you Outside linebackers find the flats, and the dime defender is going to fill the middle. What ends up happening is if you look at the bottom of your screen here, the cornerback who is supposed to go deep bites on the hook route right in front of him. The safety on the same side that is also supposed to cover deep sees the running back coming out of the backfield on this play and decides to bite up on that, leaving this wide receiver here at the bottom of the screen completely unattended. The top side of the screen is completely fine. They're following their assignments. That safety turns his back to this side of the field because he thinks everything's going to be taken care of over here. Of course, leaving a man wide open isn't going to help much, and they're easily able to score a 73-yard bomb touchdown here. Somehow, the safety from the backside is able to almost make a play here to save the touchdown. The last play we're going to look at here is another containment issue, and we're going to focus in on this defensive end right here. Again, as a defensive end, your job is nothing outside of you. He needs to contain the edge here. What ends up happening is he falls for one of the oldest plays in the book. He bites on the read option here, allowing the outside edge completely exposed, and a sneakily fast quarterback is able to get the edge and scamper off for a huge touchdown run, pushing the lead to 20, and ultimately Oklahoma just could never overcome this.
So that was a fun little film review we did. I mean, I had a lot of fun doing that. So if that's something you guys want to see us do more of, definitely let us know. That took a lot of time and effort, but that was a lot of fun to do. But just some experience I've learned, just a lot of things I saw. I watched that game last week. It was very concerning to see those basic mistakes made, especially that read option play. That read option play is something that has been in the game for years. You and I used to run it against each other in NCAA 14. Every other play, it seemed like. I understand Madden, they don't run that as much, but still, um, that is a play that every defensive end is taught from Pee Wee on now, especially. So it's concerning to see a lot of mental errors like that on Oklahoma's defense. Again, Brett Venables always led top five defenses at Clemson. Now he goes to Oklahoma, and they are struggling mightily. Texas definitely has an offense that can expose them. Quinn Ewers is now back this week, so that's another concern. But Slade, just your thoughts before we move on real quick about Oklahoma's defense.
Yeah, I mean, first off, that was a great job on that video, George. And second, I think that their defense has just, like you said, it just has not shown that they're ready to be able to be a top 4 team. I think also I 2 weeks ago, I would have thought that Oklahoma is gonna blow Texas out just based on their offensive production alone. And I'm not gonna go against Texas all season. So, I mean, I would've taken the loss there. So, it's just crazy to see that, and Texas has kinda really been holding on to that close matchup against Alabama that has been fueling their power. And so now to see Oklahoma's defense just get burned 2 weeks in a row and them lose by double digits 2 weeks in a row is just really, it's really hard to see, and I think that they're gonna need to turn it around at some point. I hope it's not today against Texas, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, no, like I said, it's definitely concerning. And going back to their offense now, especially, um, losing Dylan Gabriel is going to hurt. He has done really well for that team this year. Hopefully he's okay. He got knocked out in I believe the second quarter of last week's game. It would be
Mhm.
scary to see. So hopefully he's okay. Hopefully he's able to make a comeback. Um, but now I mean, hey, we get to see General Booty out there calling the shots, so that should be a lot of fun to see. Um, but I mean, as far as today's game goes, this is one of the oldest rivalry games in college football. These are two teams that do not like each other at all. They always play each other close, and so I think regardless of how good one team is or how bad the other team is, it's always a close game. It's always a fun rivalry game, and I am excited to see it. Uh, Changing lanes, we're going to head into our upset alert for the week. We'll give you Nick's first. Nick is putting number 20 Kansas State on upset alert. This is definitely, I mean, I put them on upset alert last week. It did not pan out for me. They are playing Iowa State on the road. This is an Iowa State team that has not played very well this season. Kansas State actually opens as only a 1-point favorite on the road at Iowa State. Um, so this is definitely a game that could go either way. Nick likes to toe that line between the spread and ranking upsets, but we'll have to wait and see. But absolutely an upset that can happen anytime you go into Ames, Iowa. It's a difficult environment. Slade, who are you taking for your upset alert this week?
Yeah, I'm going with Utah. I think they're going into a tough UCLA this week. We've said it before. UCLA is a sneaky good team this season so far. I believe they're 4-1 or 4-0, forget. But they're 18th in the regular rankings and 22nd in our rankings, and so I think that although they're ranked and Utah is 11th in the AP poll and 14th in ours. I just think that this is a game that Utah should be able to easily win when we were looking at it at the beginning of the season. And now I think this is a game that they'd be lucky to get out of here with a win. So that's really why I picked the upset. I'm going to go in this game. I mean, it's minus 3.5 for Utah. I'm definitely going to take that points, but I think that UCLA is going to be able to get this done.
Yeah, UCLA has been a surprising team this year. As a fan of another Pac-12 team, I don't think anybody saw this coming. They started last season off kind of the same way. Then they went up against Oregon about this time of year, and ended up stumbling and just couldn't recover the rest of the year. Um, but Chip Kelly is definitely trending that program in the right direction, which is good. You're getting ready to head to the Big Ten now. Hopefully, they can just get some attendance there. I made comments about it last week when they played a ranked Washington team at home, and the stands were still like only half full, which is just sad to see. But UCLA is definitely a very good team. Utah needs to be on their A game. We've seen them struggle on the road already, against Florida to open the year, and so I'm not going to say this is going to be a difficult environment for them, but this can absolutely be a difficult team for Utah to play. Uh, Slade, I'm going to surprise you here. I am putting I'm going to put Oregon on upset alert. We are
This is
traveling.
this is the this is the do it so that it doesn't happen.
Yeah. Uh, we're Arizona. Any Arizona team, Arizona State, Arizona, always seems to have our number on years when we're doing good. We always travel poorly when we go to the Arizona schools, and I think Arizona's offense is really really good. Our defense has been tested at times and they stood up, but there's been a lot of times where they've fallen flat. Um, Arizona's defense is not the greatest, so I think this could easily turn into a high scoring shootout. And when that happens, especially on the road, who knows what's going to happen. And then the other reason I put this on upset alert is people will not stop talking about our jerseys, and every time they do this, they talk about how awesome the jerseys look and all this other stuff. We end up playing like crap in them. Um, so everything is stacking up against us right now. So far, Dan Lanning has broken the curse of playing out Washington State and playing Stanford. So I'm really hoping he continues that trend, and we can take care of business against Arizona. But as an Oregon fan, I'm a little concerned because I know how these games usually treat us.
These
It is
sharp
time.
people.
It is time now for our cash out picks that we give you every week. So let's go ahead and let's pull those up. We'll show you Nick's first. Nick is riding the Kansas train until this thing dies. He's taking the Kansas money line, and Maryland is home against Purdue. He's also taking the Maryland money line. Uh, Two bets that are fair. I don't see any problem with them. Slade, who are you taking?
Yeah, so I'm going with Tulane at minus 3.5. I think that they are a very good team. We've talked about them. They're 20th in our rankings. And so against ECU, who isn't a slouch team, I think they're at least able to get a score win here, which would be 7 instead of 3.5. I think that this easily goes through for us. And then my other one is the Texas A&M versus Alabama over 51. Alabama very way yeah, sorry, stroke. Um they could get 51 on their own in this game. Um they play so hard in the 4th quarter that it could be like 30-20 in the going into the 4th, and they'll put up 50 points on their own total for the game. So, it's just ridiculous to see how they're able to close games out, and I think barring any more injuries, I think that they should be able to cover.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to this game as 24-point favorites. So if you cover the spread alone, you're already halfway to your over. But yeah, I 100% agree. Alabama is pissed off at this Texas A&M team. This is the Texas A&M team that upset them on the road last year. They were not a very good team last year. They're not a very good team this year. I think Jimbo Fisher is working his way towards getting fired. I think the Alabama game is just going to be another stamp on that firing letter. So I definitely see this not being very close, and I could see it, like you just said, Alabama scoring the over by themselves. As far as my cash out picks, I'm going to take the Iowa over, which I don't think any of us have done yet this year. Nick always likes to ride the under, but I believe in the over this week. Iowa at Illinois, over 36.5. Illinois has a very good offense. We just saw that last week against Wisconsin. They ran the ball all over Wisconsin. Uh, Iowa has a very good run defense, but DeVito can also sling the ball around. So I can see Illinois putting up some good points. Purdue at Maryland over 59. Aiden O'Connell throws the ball around. Maryland likes to throw the ball around with Tagovailoa. So this can turn into a shootout real quick in College Park, Maryland. So I am going to take the over 59. Purdue likes to make Purdue likes to make last minute comebacks and challenge for wins late. So if they do that, like I said, I can see this turning into a mess. Before we get into our game picks, let's go ahead and update you guys on our standings. If you missed our podcast on Thursday, so Nick leads the way at 40-17. Slade, you closed the gap a little bit last week. You went 10-0 with your picks, and I sit at the bottom at 34-23. I'll start taking a couple chips out here. In the cash out section, Nick leads the way at 13-7. Slade is 9-12, and I'm at 7-13. And one last thing before we get into those picks, let's update you guys with the Jack Wagon Sports top 25 standings for heading into this week. Alabama, number one in both polls. Ohio State is number two. Michigan is number three. Tennessee is number four. Syracuse, just because they beat up on a Wagner team who's not even the FCS, uh, jumps up from unranked to fifth. Ole Miss is at sixth. Georgia, James Madison, USC, TCU, Illinois, after a strong showing at Wisconsin, we just talked about, is up to 11th. LSU drops to 12th. Minnesota drops to 13th. Utah is 14th. Penn State is 15th. Mississippi State is 16th. Kansas 17th. Clemson 18th. Oklahoma State 19th. Tulane 20th. UNLV 21st. UCLA 22nd. Baylor drops after a tough loss to Oklahoma State from 11th to 23rd. Washington drops after a tough loss to UCLA from 14th to 25th, and Texas slides into the rankings. So let's go ahead. It is time for the Week 6 picks. The first game we're going to talk about here, Slade, is Arkansas at Mississippi State. We'll get Nick's pick here first. He gave it to us. So we have Nick taking Mississippi State. Slade, who do you got?
Yeah, I'm going with Mississippi State here. I think that they're 9-point favorites, and they're 23rd of the rankings, 16th in ours. I think that they're solid team so far this season, and I think they're able to get the win again today.
Yeah, I'm going to take Mississippi State as well at home. This is a team that has built up a lot of momentum the last few weeks after that tough loss on the road to LSU. Mike Leach has this offense rolling right now. They steamrolled Texas A&M last week at home. Arkansas is reeling from a very difficult loss to Alabama last week. So I think Mississippi State keeps rolling. And as a course, this makes it the Jack Wagon Sports Jinx. We had a rough week last week of the Jinx. All of our games lost. So, I mean, if we lose all of our Jinx games this week, we might just have to get rid of it. Moving on, I got family in town for this one. We have BYU and Notre Dame. This will be 7:30 p.m. on NBC. Notre Dame opens as a 3.5-point favorite. The over/under is at 51. Nick is going to take BYU. This is a neutral site game. This will be played in Vegas. Slade, who do you got?
Yeah, unfortunately, sorry to the Bell family, but I'm going to go with BYU also here. I think that I'm going to actually go with the 3.5 spread, uh, but I think that their team is just very good. Notre Dame has not been able to get things rolling this season, and so they would have to have a really, really offensive game here to get this win today.
Yeah, I'm going to give Notre Dame one because I don't feel like getting yelled at when I go back inside. But two, their offense finally found some rhythm against North Carolina in their last game. Then they had a bye week. They got a little bit of rest, got some people healthy. So I think that'll help a lot. And I think another thing that's going to help is this is going to be a defensive showdown. Notre Dame it'll be a close game. I think it'll be closer than the 3.5 points. But I think Notre Dame's offense is able to do just enough. BYU's offense has really started to struggle here lately. We saw it against Oregon, and then a few other games since then. Even the Baylor game, which they won, they won, but they were struggling to put points up the whole game. Their kicker is not very good. He's missed a lot of kicks. So I see this being a close game, but I think Notre Dame was able to find just enough rhythm uh, to get their offense rolling this season. Next game up, we have a one-loss Tulane, ranked 20th on our rankings, hosting Eastern Carolina. This will be 3:30 on ESPNU. Tulane opens as a 3.5-point favorite. The over/under is 55.5. Nick is going to take Tulane at home. Slade, who do you got?
Yeah, I'm going with Tulane here also. They were one of my cash out bets, so I have a lot of confidence in them today.
I'm going to go with Tulane as well. They upset Kansas State on the road. They struggled the next week at home, but they pulled out a gutsy win against Houston on the road last week on Friday night. This is think a surprising contending team in the American Conference. They should do really well this year. I'm kind of excited to see how far they can go in a American Conference that has become wide open. Everybody thought it was going to be Cincinnati and Houston. Cincinnati is winning, but they've struggled here and there. Houston is struggling. They had a comeback win last night against Memphis. It seems like every week we think another team is going to break out and they struggle. So it'll be interesting to see if Tulane can keep riding the green wave, or if they struggle here. Uh, Next game up, we just talked about it a little bit. We have Purdue at Maryland. This will be 12 p.m. on the Big Ten Network. Maryland opens as a 3-point favorite. The over under is 59. Nick is going to take Maryland at home. Slade, who do you got?
Yeah, I'm going Maryland at home also. I just think that their team is really solid this season, and so I think they're gonna be able to gut this one out. I think it's gonna be high scoring like you said with your bet, but I think that they're able to get it done.
Yeah, again, I think a very surprising Maryland team this year, a very good Maryland team. They were somehow able to pull themselves together at Michigan and almost come back and pull off that upset win on the road. A very good offense. Tagovailoa has finally matured, it looks like, and he's leading a very good offense at Maryland. Um, Purdue can score; they just can't play defense. And Aiden O'Connell has turned the ball over a lot too. So I think all that combined, I think Maryland gets it done at home. Uh, Now we have our revenge game this week. We have Texas A&M at Alabama. This will be 8 p.m. on CBS. Alabama, like we said earlier, is a 24-point favorite. The over/under is 50.5. Nick is going to take Alabama at home. Slade, who do you got?
Yeah, I'm going Alabama at home. I think that it might be hard to see this cover of 24 points happening early, but I think that come the fourth quarter, like I said, they're able to close it out.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Texas A&M has found a way here lately to keep games close to start. But like you said earlier, Alabama knows how to turn it on the second half. They were able to get it done against Texas on the road. They got it done against Arkansas on the road last week. I think the Texas A&M game is going to be no different. Uh, Now we move to two surprising teams in the Big 12. Undefeated TCU at undefeated Kansas. I don't think we ever thought we would be saying that. Sonny Dykes has done a great job turning that TCU program around in just 1 year. And Sonny Leopold, excuse me, not Sonny Leopold, but Coach Leopold at Kansas has established a culture there. He has players believing in this team, and they are doing surprising things, to say the least. Nick, like we said earlier, he's riding the Kansas wave until it's dead. Slade, who are you taking?
Yeah, I think this is where Kansas stumbles. I think TCU is going to be able to get a win in Kansas. So I think it's going to be a hard win. I think it's going to be a very close game, but I think TCU is able to pull it out.
Yeah. Like you just said, I think this is very close. It goes down to the wire. It's I don't see it being a blowout loss like the Oklahoma game was. I see it being close enough that the fans and the players continue to believe in the message at Kansas, no matter which way this goes. Last week, I made the mistake of going against one of my favorite teams in Wake Forest. They turned around, they won. So I am not going to do that this week. It's probably still going to bite me. But I like Nick. I am riding this Kansas wave until it's dead. I am huge fans of theirs right now. I hope they go undefeated. I hope they make the playoffs at this point. Um, and moving over to the next game, we talked about this one already a little bit. Slade, you put Utah on upset alert. So this is Utah at UCLA. This will be 3:30 on Fox. Utah opens as a 3.5-point favorite. The over/under is 64.5. Nick is going to take Utah on the road. Slade, who do you got?
Yeah, like I had said with the upset alert, I'm going to go with UCLA here. I think that they're going to be able to kind of grind this win out. I think that from a defensive standpoint, their team has been just slightly better this season, so I think that that's going to really help them out here.
I'm going to take Utah on the road. Again, I think this is a game that's going to go either way. I think it's going to be very close. But Utah has started to find their groove here. They struggled early against Florida. They played some FCS opponents and got right. And then once they got into conference play, again, they struggled to start, but they've picked it up. Cameron Rising is rolling right now. He has looked really good the past few weeks. So I think Utah is just going to be a little much for them still. But again, a close game. I think UCLA still has some hope after this one. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Staying in the Pac 12, we have Washington State traveling to number 6 USC. This will be 7:30 on Fox. USC opens as a 13-point favorite. The over under is 65.5. Nick is going to take USC at home. Slade, who do you got?
Yeah, I'm also going with USC here. I think that this is just another solid win that they're able to get against a quality team. I think that they're going to be able to get 2-score win here today also and get the spread.
I'm going to take USC, but I'm going to disagree with you on the spread. I think Washington State keeps this a little bit closer. This is a very good Washington State team. We saw them take Oregon down to the wire. They've played up to their opponent's level so far this season. They handled a very good Cal team last week, handily at home. I think they give USC some trouble. I think USC still wins this, but I see it being a one-score game this time. Uh, Over in the SEC, we have Tennessee at LSU. This will be 12 p.m. on ESPN. Tennessee opens as a 2.5 point favorite. The over/under is at 65. Nick is going to take Tennessee on the road. We were all pretty high on Hendon Hooker last week, putting him in. I think all three of us had him in the top five for our Heisman voting. Slade, who are you going to take?
Yeah, so I did not have Hooker because Nick made a big deal about that.
That's
But
right. That's right.
but I'm also going with Tennessee here. I think that their team has been very good this season so far, and I think that LSU has just kind of been a middle of the pack team. I mean, you have Brian Kelly showing up late to press conferences every week and just paying the fine. So, I mean, I think that says enough about LSU's team.
Yeah, I'm going to take Tennessee as well. The offense is rolling. The defense struggles, but I don't think LSU has enough offense to overcome Tennessee's. Like you said, I mean, we just watched LSU struggle to put Auburn away last week. Auburn was leading that game for 3 quarters. An Auburn team that is not very good. We saw Penn State just handle them on the road, and so I think this is a little closer. Probably a little over the spread. I see it being a field goal game, if not more. But I think Tennessee's offense is just too much, especially on the road. And moving on, it is time now for the Jack Wagon Sports Game of the Week for Week 6.
Direct snap. Brooks trying to make something happen. He breaks free. Penny Brooks forgets the field goal. Put him with a touchdown.
So Texas is out for a little bit of revenge after last season. Oklahoma wins on the last play of the game. Oh, there's Slade is. We can finally see him now. There we go.
I'm trying.
So yeah, a revenge game for Texas. Again, Oklahoma is struggling right now. Texas has kind of found their groove after that Texas A&M loss. Texas slips into our rankings at number 25 this week. Nick is going to take Texas. Again, this game is in Dallas. It's not a home game technically for either team. Slade, I think we already know who you're taking, but tell us why you're taking Texas.
Yeah, I'm going with Texas here. I think that Oklahoma stumbled the last 2 weeks. I think that's something that Texas was able to look at, see those weaknesses defensively, and I think they're going to be able to capitalize today.
I am going to take Texas as well. Again, Quinn Ewers is coming back. The Oklahoma defense is just making too many mistakes, and there is a little concern creeping into the back of my mind about possibly having to get a Texas tattoo right now. But Oklahoma State's still my hope. Kansas, TCU. So I mean, there's plenty of teams that Texas needs to overcome, but the concern is definitely growing a little bit here. So I am getting a little worried. But that will wrap up Out of the Tunnel for Week 6. We hope you guys enjoyed it. We had a lot of fun bringing it to you. Next time Nick decides to sleep in, I'm going to make sure to put our names above our picks. But hopefully he got his beauty sleep and he enjoyed it. But we will see you guys next week for Week 7 with Out of the Tunnel. They're on a bye week. It doesn't matter. You should save that for next week.
They're going to win this week.
Yeah. They can't lose. Well, Penn State would find a way to lose on their bye week. I'm just kidding. Oregon would too. But like I said, we had a lot of fun bringing this one to you guys. We hope you enjoyed it. We will see you next week for Week 7 Out of the Tunnel. I think we already know Game of the Week is going to be Penn State at Michigan. So we'll make sure we have everything to get you guys ready for that game next week and all the others as well. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube. Turn your notifications on so you guys know when we go live with these episodes every week, as well as when we publish our weekly podcast. We would appreciate you guys to check that out. We just wrapped up our NHL season previews over there. We're very excited for hockey season to start. We got Slade, a favorite team. Nick is into it, so we're going to have a lot of fun with hockey season. NASCAR season is coming to an end. We're coming up to the championship race, so we're going to be getting you guys ready for all that. And every week we break down the previous weeks of NFL and college football and get you ready for the next week as well. So once again, thank you so much for checking us out, and we will see you guys next week.
See you guys.